Greetings, beautiful beings. I am Melissa Knight. This is SOAR, Sacred One, Amplify Your Roar. I am an oracle, an Akashic practitioner, a light worker, a shaman, an energetic healer. I am here to help others find, rediscover, connect with, and amplify their light and their roar. The roar is about repurposing, recycling, and reclaiming righteous rage. We've all been through things. We've all been trampled upon, we've gone over things and under things and been run over and flattened, in fact, or so we thought. But we got up. And then what did we do? Did we really get up fully? Did we reclaim our position and our trajectory that we were on for our life? Did we find our life purpose? Did we learn how to find and light our light for the world? I'm here to help you do that and to bring some other people along who are also excited about helping you to do that. In this show, I'll be joined by artisans, artists, healers, practitioners of all types, shamans and curanderos, medicine women and men, Akashic practitioners and Reiki practitioners, pranic healers, cranial sacral. My job, as I see it, is to prepare you and to equip you with the tools that you need, because we each have to have our own sacred medicine bag. We never know when someone we encounter will need our sacred medicine or help finding their own. That's what this journey is all about. It's about finding a tribe, building a community, setting a stage globally for connection, unification, love, and healing, radical healing, because it's absolutely time that we, each of us, reclaim our true selves, reach for our highest and truest selves. I'm ready. I am. Are you? Let's go. Let's soar together. Thank you for joining us for another episode of SOAR with Melissa Knight. Today I'm joined by Willie Lopez with the Kaupuli of the Sixth Sun. Willie, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You brought with you the actual Sixth Sun calendar.
Yes.
It is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Before we talk about that, I'd really love to hear about your involvement and how you got connected to the Kaupuli, what the Kaupuli actually means, what its history is, and then we'll talk about the Mayan calendar.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll first preface my response by saying that when I was very young, I would always wonder about the stars and the universe. Yeah. Questions that we've all marveled. Where's the end? And if there's an end to that, where's beyond that?
Right.
So I went through that for so many years. I'd look in the mirror and wonder where I came from. And I would look at my features and realize that I looked different than most people that I knew. And the knowledge that I had, that I was being shown, seemed to not fit just right. And as time progressed, I had so many questions. Every time I had a question, it was answered with more questions. No one seemed to have the right response. I came across some individuals who thought that maybe we could get together and start reading materials on things that were relevant to us.
Okay.
And what I mean by us, indigenous
Yeah.
of all groups. And as a result, a reading group developed. Kalpuli. Kalpuli primarily was used a long time ago, not as a reading group, but as a gathering for indigenous individuals, villages, where they could talk about events, maybe work out issues or teachings, or they would talk about perhaps what's going on in the world around them, or the stars. It could be a university, it could be just culturally relevant traditions, a whole lot of things.
Community gathering, sharing of knowledge across generations within the community and what we might need at this particular time, as well as looking at the past and taking that forward.
Yeah, an accumulation of all that. And present day, we are in a position where we still read, we
Oh,
talk,
goodness.
learn, and we have children, adults, people of all ages, all nationalities, and we just have questions that come up, and we don't have the answers, but collectively, we kind of research it within ourselves.
Love it.
Yeah.
How large is the group?
Well, it's not one set group. You come as you wish. The average is perhaps maybe 10 to 15 people at a time. If you counted everybody that shows up, and we're talking about maybe a good 75 individuals, but not all 75 show up at one time. There can be absences of longer amounts of time. And so when we gather every other week, it's just different individuals gathering. The conversations continue from whatever it was before, and new ones develop on the occasion of that reading.
I love it. I've been a couple of times, and it's just, it feels like home every time you walk in. Like you said, the conversations continue, and you remember what you were talking about the last time you saw that person, even if that wasn't the last time that there was the meeting, and you pick up where you were, and there's just a sense of family and community and connection.
Yes.
And I love that.
A lot of family, and we enjoy it. It's a 2-hour time. We eat.
Have you made that pozole recently?
I just did, in fact.
See, I should have asked you that before. Do you have leftover pozole, Willie, when you're coming? No.
Yeah,
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yeah, soothes the soul, and just good food and sharing food. I love that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's good stuff. I
Yeah.
encourage everybody to eat some.
Now, the sixth sun, the Mayan sixth sun calendar. Talk to us about that.
Well, the sixth sun, it's not, this is the calendar. This is, it's interesting. If you've ever seen codices that the Mayans used to put together, and keep in mind that a codice is, it's just history. It's information.
Right.
It's an explanation, all in one. And before the Europeans showed up, they had codices that explained what their inventions were, what their discoveries were, what their teachings were. About 97% of all those codices were destroyed. They were burned. The few that were left gave us immense amount of information, and we just wonder what the rest would have done.
Right, right.
This is just a tiny bit, a little
fraction,
piece.
yeah.
A fraction is basic information on how to determine certain aspects of those codices. It has mixture of, it's not an art piece, although it looks artistic, but it's a mixture of mathematics, because they're mathematical people.
Right.
Our ancient ancestors were stargazers, they were time travelers, and you say, well, what does all that mean?
Yeah.
Well, what it means is that they understood their surroundings better than most people understand them today. And what you see here is just a little bit of that, and it does have its interesting aspects to it. It talks about the different parts of the lives of people, and we conduct what are called readings, where we talk about past, present, and future. We're not talking tea leaves. We're talking something much more intricate.
It really is.
It really is, and it just gives us a little bit of a ventana, a window into what it was that they were capable of learning and what they were teaching. I know that many parts of this are actually familiar to some people who are familiar with trigonometry and physics and so on.
It's very
because
scientific.
it incorporates many of that, not in the sense that we understand it, but what is called ancient math.
Right.
And
right.
which ancient math is really what allowed them to be able to travel in time or measure the stars and speeds and the calendar itself.
Right. To make the predictions that they were able to make.
Yes.
It was just an honor to sit with you and be with you and the other. There were, was it 13, 17? The year, 3 years ago, when we went through the training to learn
yes.
the new calendar
Yes.
and become day keepers, and it was just an amazing, amazing process. There were 17 of us. It was only the second time
Yes.
since the new calendar came out that it had been taught. San Diego, I think, and starting with the calendar with the 13 glyphs, and then
Came to Fresno.
yeah, and it was the exact number. It was perfect. Incredibly fascinating, and like you said, just in the 3 days of training that we did and what we were able to walk away with in being able to do a birth codex reading for someone, still, it felt like you're getting just the tip of the iceberg of the depth of what you can do with this.
Well, that's an example of where, as we're learning, more questions came out of it, at least for myself.
Definitely.
And starting to understand some of those areas just a little bit.
So, do you recall which glyphs were your primary glyphs for this year? What's the center of your?
Well, Anna, we have areas where we talk about peace and harmony. We're talking about, see, we've entered, Kapuli of the sixth sun, we've entered a new cycle.
Right.
The cycle goes approximately 26,000 years per cycle. We've had 5 that the ancients believed in. 5 times 26. Actually, it's a little bit less than that, but we're not going to talk about the exact number.
Okay.
But it's close to 26,000.
Right.
The 5th cycle just ended on the 21st of December of 2012. And the ancients realized that that was the end of a cycle that brought all the planets back again, starting over again. What we mean by that is that planets go and revolve around each other. Our solar system has a movement,
Right.
and where it starts and where it ends up again, like say the 24-hour thing, as an example. Where is it when it starts, and where is it when it starts again?
Right.
Well, all that journey, about 26,000 years. Except that somehow they were able to calculate it down to the second. They had it not just on December 12th of 21, but it was on the 11th hour of the 11th
Yeah.
minute of the 11th second.
Yeah.
They had
It's so
some
precise.
students from MIT calculate that. And according to them, they were off by 34 seconds.
Wow.
Off? I'm not sure.
Right.
That's pretty remarkable.
It is.
That's using the ancient math that we see here.
Wow.
So that is so interesting. So we learn about now how that came about exactly, but what was it that made them so remarkable? We know that they had the 0. We know that they were capable of using methods that didn't require any technology. And so if they didn't require any technology, and they built these pyramids, what was it that they were using? What else did they know? If they're proficient in that, they also, we think, they're probably pretty good at other things too.
Absolutely.
One of the other things is how they're able to talk and teach us about the ways of the planet. They talked about dimensions,
Yes.
about being able to go from one dimension to the other. Some people say, oh, there's a lot of hocus pocus in some of that stuff you do. But yet, people will go ahead and pick and choose, they cherry pick on the advances of their civilization and discard the other stuff they don't understand.
Right.
No, you can't just say, we believe in this because we feel that they're pretty right on because we understand it. But we don't believe in that because we don't understand it.
Right, right.
So we
Right.
kind of cover a little bit of everything.
I love that. I remember when Tata Jose, who's, as I understand it, correct me, the last of the Mayan daykeepers who have been taught this oral tradition passed down, and he's carrying that forward and came and taught it to us and has been traveling and teaching it to groups of people who are ready to be a part of that journey and carrying it forward, teaching. The piece that always stood out to me was when he talked about time and past and present and future and how we see it in such a linear way, and yet past, present, and future, according to the Mayans, it is happening simultaneously.
Yes.
There is a part of our, and when we do birth codex readings, we're looking at the past being prior to 2012, the future, the present being your the current year from your birthday. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
And the future being the year following the new calendar, so 13.
For the new calendar, correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of have to work with that to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
They believed that you could bend time.
Mm-hmm.
The ancients believed that you
Yep.
could bend time, that you can move from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Now that seemed ludicrous to so many people. It's like, oh, that's not the case. But yet Einstein put together his E equals MC square, which is essentially doing that.
Yeah.
And his proposal was that you can travel in time and go faster if you're able to bend time. Same thing,
Right.
gravitation. Now he explained it in a method that perhaps we are more willing to digest. And it's like if you get a piece of paper and you fold it and you travel from this point to this point, you're traveling faster because you folded it instead of its length. You're folding it like this, and so you're going faster in time. But that's hard to understand. Yet for the Mayans, they understood it perfectly,
got it.
and they felt we're capable of traveling. How do you do that?
Right.
And that, I wish I knew how they do it, but they had their ways of explaining it.
Right. And I wonder just how fascinating it would be and how much more we would learn and how much more we'd be able to do were we to have access to the other 97% or
Yes.
whatever of work like this that was destroyed.
Well, part of their understanding is that we don't have to go anywhere. An example is how they viewed the universe. They viewed that the universe, part of it is composed of the tangible. Equate that to today's explanation. In the periodic table, about 5% of the tangible are made up of what we can see, ourselves, our body, our trees, planets, all the stuff that's solid and we can identify. That's 5%. About 27% is what we consider dark matter. Dark matter, can't see it, can't smell it, can't taste it, can't touch it, but it exists. They've been able to determine that.
Right.
What about the rest? What about the other 68%, for example, that exists in the universe? Where is that at? Our science says something exists, we just don't know what it is. Well, our ancients already knew what that was. What is that? Consciousness.
Right.
We live in consciousness. We're swimming in it.
That's right.
A fish in an ocean may not realize that they're swimming in water.
Right. Perfect.
But we understand they are. They may not. They're swimming in water. We're swimming or existing in consciousness.
That's
That's
so
where
true.
we're able and capable of communicating with each other. And our ancients believed we live in consciousness. If you focus and you concentrate, you're able to communicate with somebody on the other side of town, on the other side of the planet, on the other side of the universe.
That's true.
And these emotions, they believed this. This wasn't a foreign concept to them. It was acceptable, except that we have a hard time understanding that concept. We believe, many of us in the science world here, on the Big Bang, that everything exploded from somewhere and created life and consciousness and intelligence. Their belief was just the opposite, that it was intelligence that existed, and whatever you consider as the Big Bang, it was not consciousness or intelligence that was created, that created everything else, just the opposite. And I
the
think
expansion from there.
we personally, I feel that that's the much more, I think, theory that makes sense.
Yeah, the idea of the analogy with the fish swimming in water, and that we're all kind of swimming in this we can't name it, well, we can name it, but we can't really see it, but we can see the effects of it. This shared consciousness makes perfect sense.
And this discussion we're having, it's the type of thing that occurs in Kalpuli. When we gather together, we all have different areas of proficiency and expertise. We share. We go ahead and provide what knowledge we each have. We learn from each other. We are able to answer questions that we had in a way that's interesting to us, that will, oh, wow, that makes sense. Like just the other day, I was doing a cleansing. I had sage that I was using to cleanse a house. And the two students were students that went to Fresno State. One was an engineering student, another one was in the science program. And they didn't quite understand what the point was, but they were going with the flow. And I said, well, before I finish this, I really like for you to understand it.
Yeah, good.
So I'm going to explain. I told them about the sage. And it's the same kind of an explanation that I presented at the Kalpuli. Sage is an herb, it's a plant, and we burn it. We simply say, get rid of the bad energy, bring in the good energy.
Yep.
So we keep it real simple. But for you guys, you need more of an explanation. So let me give you a little bit more. And so they're listening, very attentive. And I said, look, we know that if you have a hydrogen atom, they exist. You agree? They said, yes. Okay, we have oxygen atoms. Okay. You put 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. You got water. Okay, there's a molecular structure that happens when you combine them.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, okay, so are you okay with that? Yeah.
Agreed with that, okay.
Got it. Okay, we got that. Well, we know that a lot of molecular changes occur based on the combination of whatever elements you have. Well, sage, when you burn it, what it does, it releases a huge amount of ions. So you understand what ions are? We have them around us, and they understood that part, okay? Okay, now we're releasing a bunch of ions. These ions are displacing ions that would, in our sense, provide the negative energy with positive energy. What do we mean by that? It's allowing us to be able to say the smoke from the sage to change the atmosphere so we can think better. If you put that smoke over your head and around you, you're allowing your third eye, which we consider a way of communicating a consciousness. Oh, okay, well, you don't have to accept it, but let's assume that that exists. What it also does, like music, like sound,
Right.
smoke also brings back memory, brings back ancient memory. So when you listen to the radio and you were in love in the 10th grade and there's that song and it just makes your heart skip a beat, that song or that sound,
Yep.
well, sounds do that to us because
All the chemical reactions
it
that go
brings
with
everything
that, right?
back.
Yeah.
The sage brings back those memories that existed for a long time. The sounds do the same thing to us. So it makes it soothing,
Yes.
allows us to communicate. So that's what I'm using in the sage. And we use other things to capture negative or change things. Sage, for example, will change the molecular structure of bacteria to the point where if you're smelly and you can't take a bath or a shower, burn the sage, you'll smell like smoke for a while, it'll dissipate and you no longer will smell. Why? Because it gets rid of the bacteria. That's the science part. Do you understand that? Yeah, okay. So you see how sage can change the molecular? Now I had some crushed eggshells. So now I'm going to put these on the entrance. So what that does, it absorbs negative energy. He says, do you understand that? No, okay. We walked to the refrigerator, opened the door, and I said, does it smell? He says, no. Okay. What's that doing there? It's baking soda. It's, I guess, for cooking. It's not just for cooking. You open it up, it absorbs the bad smells.
Yep.
How does it absorb it? It's not really absorbing it. What it's doing is changing the molecular structure, or what it's doing is killing that bacteria, or it's getting rid of the odors that you don't want.
The
Put them
molecules
in
are
the
mixing.
freezer. Yeah. And they go, okay, they understood that. Well, thus the eggshells. So I went on and on and on explaining about the oils and this and that and making the comparisons.
Right.
After we were done, I said, now I'm going to cleanse you. And you pick up your arms, and you have certain points in your body that need to be purified. We're going to do that. Pick up your feet, because you got them in your feet. And we went through the whole process. It took 3.5 hours of explaining in detail. By the time we were done, they understood.
Awesome.
Kalpuli allows us to take our time, explain things, old ways with the new.
Yeah. That's
And
beautiful.
so now they walk away thinking, wow, this is so interesting, because now they understand. And that's what Kalpuli is.
That's a beautiful example. Beautiful example. Thank you for sharing.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. It reminds me once at one of the meetings there was, I think, a 9-year-old. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but we were trying to solve something, and we were thinking through, I think, planning one of the future meetings. And I don't know if you remember this, and I don't remember whose son or grandson it was, but he was sitting there and he had whatever he was, I think he had like some video game he was playing on his phone or something, and he was paying attention to us, but we weren't aware that he was paying attention. And at one point he had something to share, and he blurted out something, and it was exactly what we needed to, and we hadn't seen it that way. Do you remember that?
Well, I'm not sure if I remember what you're talking about, but I have a grandson who was, at the time, he's about 9 or 10 now, but at the age of almost 4, he was playing with his computer. My daughter had told me he's studying the universe because he wanted to be a scientist. Ask him about the universe. I went ahead and said, hey, his name is Isel. Isel, what is it that you know about the universe? And he's like looking at me wanting to not talk. He's busy with what he's doing. And I asked him about 3 times. He didn't want me to continue asking because I was bugging him, basically. So he answered the question. I asked him, where's the universe? I was expecting him whatever kind of an answer, you know, that he had from what he studied. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me and went on the question, where is the universe? His answer was.
Love it. Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. That was an excellent answer.
Absolutely.
From a 4-year-old telling you that the universe is within us, that we are the universe, swimming in consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. He understood it.
Perfect.
And it was so obvious that it was just invisible to me. That's an example of how the old can learn from the young.
Yes, definitely. Wisdom beyond his years.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. This has been very enlightening, and I think our viewers will really appreciate it.
I think they will.
We will show information about how to connect with Kalpuli and join the group, and it's every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday, 6:30 to
8:30
8:30.
Meeting at the
Potluck,
Chicano Youth Center.
don't need to bring anything, though.
I want to know when you're making pozole.
I just made some.
I got to have some of that. Thank you for joining us.